कि जिंदगी मेरी सौ ख्वाहिशां, हाँ कि जिंदगी मेरी सौ ख्वाहिशां, मैं पूरी करा.
Hello children, I hope all is well and you're doing good, you're taking care of yourself and also at the same time studying for the exams, right? Yeah. Now today's topic is going to we are going to open in fact new possibilities as to what will happen to charge when it comes near another charge. That's what I mean by new possibilities, because in electrostatics the very fundamental question in entire electrostatics we'll be answering is only this: how does one charge affect the other charge while, now please listen to this, it is at rest or it is moving, and even when it is accelerating. But the second and third question are for like higher order. For now we are going to keep the charges at rest, right? Then we'll be studying the effect of this charge on this charge, because we've been seeing it from the beginning of this chapter. We've been seeing this, that like charges repel, unlike charges attract, right? All those things are okay, but the next logical question will therefore be, okay, you said there is force between two charges, attractive or repulsive. Next logical question is only this, that what the force is, how much is the force, right? So we are here to answer that question, and this law, Coulomb's law, is going to help us answer that question. Okay, very simple law. This is very fundamental, and this law is one of the experimental laws. Now what is experimental law? I'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, before I actually get into this, please listen to this carefully. See, this is the first chapter of 12th, right? This is the first chapter of 12th. Now whatever, if you're a person in 12th already, right, whatever has happened, you might have done good, excellent, or not so good, whatever that has happened in 11th, this is the time for a new beginning. You might already have begun, but yes, if you're watching these videos, this is the time for a new beginning. Okay, this is the first chapter. Try to understand this. I'll go very slow in this chapter. Try to understand each and every finer aspect, everything I tell you. Definitely all of my videos will contain everything you need to know in all these chapters, guaranteed. Okay, now having said that, you keep an open mind, get ready to blown away, and of course while doing that your problem solving ability will also increase. Trust me on that one. The problem solving ability will increase, and once you are able to solve problems, you will start seeing the beauty of physics. Okay, and visualize yourself. If you are having difficulty to start, visualize yourself solving problems. Any new problem you are able to solve, new problem you are able to solve, doing good in tests. Visualize yourself in that position, and automatically you will get a motivation to do that. Okay, so in order to do that, please put your efforts at this stage. Okay, and it's a new beginning. Take it as a new, whatever has happened, maybe really good you have done in 11th or not so good, whatever it is, this is going to be the first chapter of 12th. And Coulomb, why I'm saying this today, why not on first day, why not on video 1? Because the real electrostatic begins now. In my previous videos we were only getting to know what the charge is, right? What are the properties of charge, how do you charge objects, only that we have done so far. But the real thing, the real question of electrostatics, how does one charge affect the other charge I'm sorry, will be answered here, right? So please listen to this carefully. And yes, it's simple law. This law is simple, but things as we move on will get interesting, will only get interesting, nothing else, right? Okay, so what is this Coulomb's law? Actually, you know what, I'll start it this way, that suppose Coulomb had not discovered this. Suppose you are in time when Coulomb's law does not even exist. Say Coulomb is like, I don't know, Coulomb got busy with something else, he got distracted and he never studied this. Suppose you're in his shoes, would you be able to discover Coulomb's law after your name, right? Let's see if you could have done it, right? So what's the question at our hand? The question at our hand is how much the force applied by one charge on the other charge, right? So let's say Like you don't have any law for this. People around you are asking this question: how much power force is? Right, that's the question. Right. So now what you can do is, please listen. Right, you could have, like, for all you know, you could have discovered this Coulomb's law. Let's see how. Please listen. So suppose Coulomb is not there and you're at work, you are doing the work, you are at the work. Please listen. So what you will do is, listen to this carefully. What you will do is, this method is basically the method for all the experimental laws. The laws that we come up with, the experimental laws are coming up, we discover them in this way. Please listen. So I don't know, I'll take a charge Q. I'll take another charge Q. Let's call this Q1, let's call this Q2. Let them be separated by a distance of R. Okay. The question that Coulomb law answers is the force between these two charges. Okay. But let's say you don't know how much the force is. We don't have Coulomb's law, right? You are back in his time. What you can do is, please listen to this carefully. You can measure the forces, like you'll take hundreds of data by varying 1, 2, 3, all the 3 variables. Okay. So what would have happened is, please listen, what would have happened is, back in time, you will keep the R constant. Please listen, keep R as a constant and go on taking different charges. For example, Q1, Q2, and then measure the force between them by keeping R constant. Okay. For example, if you take Q as 2, we'll start with the very basic. Let's take Q1 as 1 coulomb, Q2 as 1 coulomb. Let's say the force you got is some, I don't know, 2 Newton. You've got force to be 2 Newton. Okay. For an appropriate value of R, you've got force as 2 Newton. Continue. Let's say Q1, now you'll change. You'll measure the force and write it as 2 Newton. And also at the same time, you keep your data and get ready to plot a graph. Remember, you are Coulomb now. You are trying to come up with a law. What law? How much the force is between 2 charges separated by a distance of R. You're trying to arrive at this law, right? Let's see if we can arrive, if he was not there, right? If you were, like, could you have discovered this law? Very easy, you could have done it. Let's see, right? So Q1, Q2, force you measured. Okay. Now Q1, let it be 1 only. Q2, let's say is 2. You happen to get the force of 4 Newton. Okay. Now, let's say Q1 is 1 still. Q2 is 3. You're getting force of 6 Newton. Now, I'll change this a little bit. Let's say Q1 is 2 now. Q2 is 1. You're getting force of 2 Newton again. 4 Newton. Let's say Q1 is 3. Q2 is, wait. This will be 2. Let this be 2. And this also be 2. 2 and 2. Now, in this case, let's say you're getting a force of 8 Newton. Now, you'll take this as 2, this as 3. You're getting a force of 12 Newton. And these are all measured values. You'll be able to measure the force between 2 charges. And trust me, these values are correct. But, like, I know that these values are correct, but if you are doing experiment, you will get these exact same values. And remember again, you don't know what Coulomb's law is, right? Fine. Let Q1 be now, I don't know, 3, Q2 be 1, then 3, 2, and then 3, 3. Basically, you'll get 9 different combinations. Did I get 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different combinations. For all these different combinations, you will get different forces. For example, for this, you will get 6 Newton. For this, you will get 12 Newton. For this, 3 and 3, you will get 18 Newton. You will get these forces, right? Now, let me plot a graph of the product of charges against force. I'll plot a graph of product of charges against force. Let's see. How much is the product of charge here? 1 into 1, which is 1. So I'll just like up to 18. We have started from force increases from 2 to 18, and product of charge starts from the smallest product you will see in this table is 1, and biggest product you will see is 9. So my x-axis should contain at least up to 9. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, fine. And my y-axis should contain up to 18 newtons. So I'll take So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And my y-axis should contain 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, right? Let's see, let me plot these values. Okay, so 1 into 1, 2 Newton. So for a product when Q1 into Q2 is 1, because 1 into 1 is 1, right? At that the force is 2 Newton. So here this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. This is force in Newton. This is product of Q1 and Q2 in Coulomb squared, because charge is Coulomb. Coulomb into Coulomb, Coulomb squared. Let's say I'm trying to plot a graph. Right? So, and wait, you will not be able to get this idea immediately. What I am telling you is the shortest way, because I have in my mind what Coulomb's law is. But if you are Coulomb and you are trying to discover this, you have to go through millions and not even millions, thousands of different values. Then you'll plot a graph. And how do I know? So then how do I know that I directly have to plot a graph of Q1 into Q2 against force? You don't know that. You don't know that. What if you were Coulomb? You would have done is, you would have plotted a graph of force against Q1. You would have plotted a graph of force against Q2. You're not getting any proper pattern, right? Maybe you've plotted a graph of 1 by force against Q1. Maybe you've plotted a graph of force versus temperature. You don't know whether temperature matters. You don't know force versus pressure in the atmospheric pressure in the, for different temperatures. You might have plotted a graph of force was different things. But the problem is, before we could go on venturing into all the possible physical quantities, there is something called dimensional analysis, right? So you know, before you could try to come up with try all the variables like temperature, pressure, you won't actually do it, because dimensionally you know that the dimensions of LHS, force, should match the dimensions of RHS. So you'll only focus on those quantities. Okay, anyway, I was telling temperature, pressure and all those things just to convince you that you have to go through different variables and different trials and errors and then see which one fits the equation. The answers that you're getting, your equation should be matching with that, right? Anyway, continue. Right? So now you're plotting Q1 versus Q2. Let me plot a graph. So 1 into 1 is 2. I am getting this. When it is 1 into 2. 1 into 2, how many? 1 into 2? 1 into 2 is 2, right? So for Q1 into Q2 of 2, the force you're getting is 4 Newton. Okay, continue. For 1 into 3, that's 3? Yeah. For a 3, you're getting a force of 6 Newton. Continue. For 2 into 1 is again like 2. It is this point. 2 into 2 is 4. Yeah. So for 4, you're getting 8 Newton. So 4 is giving me 8 Newtons. Fine. Continue. 2 into 3 is 6. 6 is giving me not 6 Newton. It will give me 12 Newton of force. Right. 2 into 3 will give me, yeah, it's here. Let's see. I'm sorry. This is 6 Newton. 2 into 3 is 12 Newton. It will give me 12 Newton. So 6 will give me 12 Newton. I'll plot a graph there. Continue. 7 I don't think we'll get here. 3 into 1. So basically, and 3 into 2 is 6 again 12 Newton. 3 into 3 is 18. So 3 into 3 is 9. And at 9 you're getting 18 Newton. A graph for 18 Newton. Wait, where is it? Yeah, here. Now if you notice here, wait. If you notice here, you're getting a straight line. Are we getting a straight line? Looks like it. You're getting a straight line. What does that tell you? Is it a straight line passing through origin? Yes. And such a straight line have a common equation. Y is equal to mx plus c is not there because it is passing through origin. No y-intercept, right? Along y-axis, what do you have? Force. Along x-axis, what do you have? What is playing the role of x? Q1 into Q2 should be equal to m into Q1 into Q2. Now, I don't know what the slope of this line is going to be. So, but at least I can say this for sure. Force is equal to m into Q1, Q2. What I can definitely say is force is proportional to product of charges. Are you getting the idea? Right. So, force is proportional to product of charges. You would have come up with this by yourself, but it would take you days and days together. But however, if you have enough time, if you have correct experimental techniques with you, what you could have done is you could have come up with this statement, that force between two charges separated by a fixed distance is directly proportional to product of those charges. You would have come up with this. How do I know it's directly proportional? Because I've taken a lot of data, I've done a lot of experiments, and I've come up with this graph which clearly shows that it's a straight line, which tells me eventually that force is directly proportional to product of charges. Attractive or repulsive, that we'll see later. For that we already know. If the charges are same, it will be repulsive. If the charges are different, it will be attractive. We're not here to answer that, for now at least. We are here to find out how much the force is, not the direction of force. Right? Anyway, continue. So force is proportional to Q1 into Q2. I hope you got it, right? Continue. What else? We kept R constant here, right? Now what we'll do is, we'll do the same experiment. We'll do bunch of experiments finding the forces, except this time I'll keep the product of charges constant and I'll vary the distance. Right? Let's try to plot that graph. Okay, so I hope this is okay. Force is directly proportional to product of charges. Please listen to this. This is, at least if you understand how we come up with this law, there are several experimental laws that we'll be studying in 12th. Okay, several of them, like Biot-Savart's law, and there are so many others. But yeah, like Ohm's law. Several laws are there which we have come up with. We call them experimental laws. Then there is another kind of law which is called like theoretical law. These laws have to come up out of your mind. You have to think, do math, and then come up with the theoretical law. Like E is equal to mc squared. Beautifully. Like that, those laws, like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Right? Like Gauss law of electromagnetism. These like electrostatics. Don't worry about all these laws. You'll study about these later. But these are all theoretical laws. The laws that can only come out of your mind. And some other laws are called experimental laws. Like Coulomb's law is an experimental law. Biot-Savart's law, which we will be learning later. Experimental law. So try to understand this. I know I'm going very slow here, but I have a point to make here. The point is that these experimental laws, you could have come up with these laws, right? Anyway, now listen. What are we trying to do now? We've learned one thing at least. With all these experiments, we've learned one thing, that force between two charges is directly proportional to product of charges. Okay, continue. Now what we'll do, for the same two charges, except I'll keep the product constant. Matlab, I'll not change the charges. What I'll do now is, I'll take a charge of, I don't know, fixed value, 3 coulomb. And here I'll take 2 coulomb. Okay, or I'll take the simplest of charges. I'll take 1 coulomb. And I'll keep the distance, varying. Like to begin with, in the previous case, I had a distance of, let's say, 0.5. Okay, not exactly, some distance r. Okay, now please listen. What I'll do now is, I'll plot a graph of R and F while keeping Q1 and Q2 constant. I'll keep that constant. Okay. Let's say for a distance of R equal to 1 meter. What you'll do is, you'll calculate the force. So force, let's say you've got it to be, I don't know, you've got the force as some 64 Newton. For some reason you've got 64 Newton. Then for R is equal to 2, you'll get the force to be 16. For R is equal to 3. Okay. What you'll do is, what will happen is, you'll get the force to be equal to 64 by 9. For R is equal to 4, you'll get a force equal to 4 squared, 4 Newton. For R is equal to 5, you'll get a force of 64 divided by 25. You're getting these values. Let's say I've done this experiment, and trust me when I say this, that you will get these values for a given constant, bunch of charges and some other proportionality constant. You'll definitely get this graph. Now if you try to plot this graph of R versus force, please listen, if you try to plot this graph, what these values will do is, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is R. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, and along y-axis you have force which increases up to 64 and eventually comes down to 24 by 25, which is 24 by 20, 64 by 25 is roughly, I don't know, 2.145, 15 remains, 2.56. So force varies from 64 to 2.56. So force, I'll start with, I don't know, I have to take care of the multiples also. So 8, 16, 24, 32 and so on, 40, 48, 56 and 64. Okay, so and this is R 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For R equal to 1, how much of the force? 64. So for R is equal to 1, your force is 64. For R is equal to 2, your force is 16. For R is equal to 3, your force is 64 by 9. 64 by 9 is roughly 7.1. So 7, right? So for R is equal to 3, you're getting force of about 7 newtons. Then R is equal to 4, your force is 4 Newton. R is equal to 5, your force is 2.56. I hope you're getting the point, right? Now if I connect all these dots, notice the graph. You see this graph? This is a graph for something called this shape is called a rectangular hyperbola. A rectangular hyperbola. But later on, you know what happened? We plotted this graph. We were getting a rectangular hyperbola, but it was not matching with the dimensions of force. Then what we did was actually we plotted a graph of this versus r squared. We plotted a graph of force versus r squared. In that case, not only were we getting rectangular hyperbola, but we were also at the same time getting more proper values. This time with r squared, the values of force, experimental values, and the values that the graph is showing, they were matching closely, right? So in this case, what we did was we were getting a rectangular hyperbola with force versus r squared. And rectangular hyperbola has this general equation that y into x is a constant. Y into x is a constant, or y is equal to constant divided by x, or y is inversely proportional to x. Now let's see. This is a general expression for rectangular hyperbola, and what we are getting for force versus r squared as that is a rectangular hyperbola, right? And I'm sorry, I should have started with not r but r squared itself. That is 1, 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, which is 9, 4 squared, which is 16, and 5 squared, which is 25. And for that, I would get this rectangular hyperbola, not for r. My bad. Okay, anyway, continue. So y is equal to c by x, a constant by x, or y is proportional to 1 by x. Now, what do we have along y-axis? The force. And what do you have along x-axis? R squared. So are you getting this from the experiments, several experiments, hundreds and thousands of experiments that you have conducted? Actually, I have taken here only 5 values. 5 values will not give you laws and all. You'll need several values. You'll need for your values to be, for your equation that you've arrived at, for that to be correct, you'll have to go through, you have to crunch a lot of data. And with that, what you get will be pretty close to a law. Okay, and it has so many other hurdles that it has to be universally acceptable and all those things. But yes, this is just how you arrive at an experimental law, right? So now, what did we arrive from this set of data? We arrived at this: force is proportional to 1 by r squared. What was the data that what was the conclusion that we had arrived from the first set of data? Force is proportional to product of charges. This itself is your Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law says that, listen to this carefully now. This is what you have arrived. If you were Coulomb, you could have done this. Or if you are not Coulomb, or if you yourself, you could have done with enough time and thought, you could have come up with this conclusions, right? So let's say you've concluded this, and now you're giving your law, whatever your name is, right? You're giving your law, which goes something like this. The electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion, basically electrostatic force between any 2 point charges is directly proportional to product of the charge and inversely proportional to square of distance of separation between them. That's what your Coulomb's law is. I hope I understood, right? Experimental law, pretty simple, pretty simple. To arrive at these laws, it is pretty simple. But yes, thanks to all these people like Coulomb's, Biot-Savart and all these people, Ohm, right? Thanks to all of them that we are using a ready-made law. You don't have to go through all these hurdles, right? You already have the law, right? But I hope you understood the important part. Why I spent so much time on this is because you understand the gist of how do you arrive at an experimental law. These are not like very difficult laws to arrive at. Great, yes, like kudos to the work that they have done. You have to appreciate the work that they have done. But could someone else, if not for Coulomb, could someone else have arrived with this law? Yes, easily, maybe after 2 years, right? So I hope you're getting the idea. Experimental laws. You do bunch of experiment, you take lot of data, plot graphs, see which one is matching. Not only first match you should be doing is experimental values should match your law, your equations, number 1. Number 2, it should be dimensionally correct also, right? These 2 hurdles if you can pass, then it can become something called a principle, right? And when this is applicable universally, irrespective of where you are, if it is applicable universally, it can be called as a law, something you have learnt in the first chapter of physics in 11th. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is you could have arrived with this law, and the law says, now after saying all this, this was not required actually for you to, this is not really like, do you really have to know this, all this? No, you don't. What you only have to know in Coulomb's law is the very statement of Coulomb's law. But knowing this makes you appreciate how do you arrive at these laws. Laws, they seem very complicated. Bunch of laws you have learned in 11th, bunch of laws you'll be learning in 12th. But more than half of them, about 60 to 70% of them, we have arrived at those laws by only doing repeated experiments. I hope you understood this, right? So what I'm trying to make you believe here is that it's not a very thoughtful process. You don't have to think deep. You have to think before taking a decision. Yes, you have to think a lot before deciding whether I should take bio or not take bio. Yes, you should decide a lot. Should I take science or not take science? You have taken science already. But yeah, the point is, this is not a very thoughtful decision. Laws are not very thoughtful, right? You can do bunch of experiment and eventually come up with this law. Now, for the Coulomb's law says that the electrostatic force between 2 charges is directly proportional to the product of charges and is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. The square of distance between them. So combining together, you have force being directly proportional to Q1, Q2. You have force being directly proportional to 1 by r squared. Combine them, you have your Coulomb's law, which says force is proportional to Q1, Q2 by r squared. Okay, I'll leave it here for a few seconds. Please write it down. If you're writing, that is. Okay, I hope you understood that. And now for the proportionality constant. Again, that can be arrived at by the experiments itself, right? And we don't have to go through all that now. We have done it, Coulomb has done it, right? And eventually we have the proportionality constant. So at this stage we stand here, force is directly proportional to Q1, Q2 by r squared. This is where we stand. We need a proportionality constant, right? So let the proportionality constant for now, let the proportionality constant be some k, okay, or I'll okay, let it be k, right? And now if you substitute, force will now be equal to k q1 q2 by r squared. Next logical question is only this: what is the value of k? The value of k, guys, is 9 into 10 to the power 9, 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter squared per coulomb squared. 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter squared per coulomb squared, where this k can also be in fact written as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Epsilon naught, that 0 is like naught, it's epsilon naught, okay? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, whose value, by the way, is again still the same, 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton meter squared per coulomb squared. Now listen, what is this epsilon naught now? Listen, epsilon naught is called the permittivity, permittivity of free space. Permittivity of free space. Free space is a fancy word for vacuum, okay? Free space is nothing but vacuum. But the point is, epsilon naught is called permittivity of free space. Now, what is this permittivity? Please, listen. You'll understand. I hope you understood the Coulomb's law. Nothing. Like all these 30 or 30 odd minutes that I've spent in arriving at this, we could have done it in first 2 minutes itself. But why I did this is for you to understand how do we come up with this law. Could you have done it? Yes. Could I have done it? Maybe no. Right? I'm not as smart as you. Anyway, but yes. Right? You could have done it. Right? Continue. I hope you understood this, right? Coulomb's law is simply this. So F is equal to k q1 q2 by r squared, where value of k is 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter squared per coulomb squared. Now, we have just been, see, in 12th, this is what will be happening. You'll be constantly shooting at you. Your NCERT textbooks, H.C. Verma, all these books, Resnick, Halliday, Walker, your teachers, all of us will be hitting you with bunch of new bullets of new terms. Epsilon naught, permittivity, free space, coulomb, right? We'll be dealing, all you have to do is one by one, deal them with one at a time. And you'll definitely like what is going on around you. In physics at least, physics you will definitely like it. If you start learning it from day one, try to understand from day one. Now listen, what no, we are just, you've been just hit by bamboozled. If you're not bamboozled, yeah, that is bamboozled is when, it's only when you let it affect you. You're not bamboozled, right? You're ready to face it. So yeah, anyway, the point is, epsilon naught is permittivity of free space. Let's see what this is. Permittivity of a medium, listen, permittivity of a medium is basically ability of that medium to allow electric field lines to penetrate through them. Simply that. Now, what is this electric field? We'll see in a minute. Well, not in a minute, in upcoming videos. But for now, just listen to this. Permittivity of a medium is the ability of electric field to penetrate that medium. If electric fields can easily penetrate a medium, that means permittivity is less. If electric fields find it very hard to penetrate through a given region, that means permittivity is more. I hope you understand, right? So permittivity of a medium is basically ability of electric field lines to penetrate or to pass through that given medium, right? If electric fields can easily pass, permittivity is less. If electric field lines find it difficult to pass, permittivity is more. More permittivity, less penetration. Less permittivity, more penetration. Okay. Now what is this permittivity of free space? Nothing. It's the same thing, the permittivity that you just learned for free space, where there is nothing, where there is vacuum. So permittivity of free space is ability of electric field lines to to penetrate nothingness or vacuum. Okay. Now the value of this, now different mediums have different values of permittivity. Free space has the value of, you can easily evaluate from here if you like. Epsilon naught is 1 by 4 pi into 9 into 10 power 9. If you evaluate that, you will get epsilon naught as 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12. Its units will be reciprocal of that one, which is per Newton per meter squared into Coulomb squared. Coulomb is a capital C, remember that. Okay. So epsilon naught, which is permittivity of free space, has this value. Do you have to remember this value? Yes, but don't worry, you'll automatically remember. You will do so many problems that you'll remember that. Do you have to remember this value? Yes, can't live without this value in 12th. You can't. You have to remember that value, right? So epsilon naught is permittivity of free space. Yeah, I've been saying permittivity of free space a lot. Is there any other medium? Yes, there is. Please listen to this carefully. Okay. But anyway, the force can easily be calculated this way. Fine. I hope you understood this. Now, for the next part. Force is so much and attractive or repulsive is decided based on the charges. Let's do a simplest of problems. Very simple. Like I really don't have to do this problem, but still we'll do it. Let's say there is a charge of 2 microcoulomb. There is a charge of 3 microcoulomb separated by distance of 2 meter. Micro is like 10 power minus 6. Separated by 2 meters. Find the electrostatic force between them is the question. Using Coulomb's law, you can do it in no time. Right? So the force between them. First of all, can you tell me what is it? Is it attractive or repulsive? Attractive or repulsive? Repulsive. Right? Because 3, 2, both seem positive. It is going to be repulsive. Right? So this force is going to happen. This here, this charge will be repelled by this charge in this direction. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But yeah, let me quickly calculate the force. Force is what? K Q1 Q2 by R squared. So K 9 into 10 to the 9. Q1 2 microcoulomb. Q2 3 microcoulomb. Micro into micro is 10 to the power minus 12. Makes it pi coulomb. Divided by distance squared. 2 squared, right? Which is 4. If you simplify this, whatever you'll get will be your force, which is, I don't know, 27, 13.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 Newton. You can write it in scientific notation and all that, but yeah, force will eventually be so much. 13.5 unless the calculation is wrong, 13.5 into 10 power minus 3 Newtons. This is how we calculate force. Now the question is, I've been saying about permittivity, right? Could the answer, pardon my eraser clothes. Okay, what I could have done is, maybe I could have replaced this vacuum. What is there between the charges right now? Nothingness, vacuum. But if I replace this vacuum by some kind of medium, we also call this medium as dielectric. More about dielectrics in in a topic called capacitors. But anyway, could I have introduced something else? Maybe some kind of oil, wood, some wax, right? I could have introduced something here, right? Or HCl, I'll pour in HCl here. One charge, another charge, HCl in between, right? Would the force be different? Answer is yes. Right? Force will be different. How much different it will be? It will be, that is to be decided by what material you are pouring in. Okay, we'll discuss that in a minute. Please listen. So anyway, that's Coulomb's law. And I think what I'll do is, this video is already pretty long enough for now, right? I hope you understood how to arrive at the law. We'll see the effect of the medium, depending on different medium, what is going to happen to the force in my next video. Okay, and other things like and very important thing, what I have done is only given you Coulomb's law here in this video. You will really have to know like some of the notes for this Coulomb's law, and trust me on this one, and I'll be repeating this in next video also. When I say something, not exaggerating, but I really mean it. When I say something as note and write something below it, if you're taking these videos seriously, take my notes twice as seriously. Okay, when I say note and write something, it is going to be immensely important. Yeah, and we're yet to discuss the notes for Coulomb's law, like different properties of how to use Coulomb's law, like attractive, repulsive, what kind of force it will be, right? Central force, things like properties. We'll be discussing it in that also. We'll discuss in next video. Okay. For now, this is like, actually I stretched this thing a little too much. The Coulomb's law. All I've done is given you something like this video. Like say, I don't know, if it's say 40 minutes. It is. Like for all I know, I could have finished it in 15 to 20 minutes. But I hope by telling you how did we arrive at this law has helped you understand what do we mean by experimental law, and also understand one more thing, that I shouldn't be saying this maybe like what Coulomb did is like really great thing. No. He smart, yes. Shall I appreciate his work? Yes. Should I thank him for his work? Yes. Was he genius? Yes. Was he hardworking? Yes. But, and I say it with the maximum respect possible for Coulomb and any other people who have to come up with experimental law, but could someone else have come up with this law if not for Coulomb? Answer is yes. How? By following the standard procedure that I just told you. Take a bunch of data, repeat it, plot, get the data, thousands of like different datas. You still have to see which one is correct, right? Because like I was like one simple stumble I'll tell you. Okay, what would have happened? Please listen to this carefully. What would have happened is, when you plot force versus distance, you would more or less get the same graph. Now the smartness really lies in deciding whether it is force versus distance, whether it is this or whether it is, when you plot force versus r squared, whether it is force is proportional to 1 by r squared or whether it is force is proportional to 1 by r. The intelligence, the smartness, the genius still lies in deciding this. But yes, the experimental laws can still be arrived by crunching lot of data. Data has everything, right? One fine day we'll also talk about like how much data helps and how much the data affects your daily life. In one of these videos I'll talk about that. Like it's a small field in computer science right now. Okay, we'll talk about that on some fine day. But yes, trust me, from day one, data has helped humanity a lot, and data is going to be the next big thing in yours and my life. Okay, something to be discussed on like, let me discuss that in some other video, right? But yes, data, beautiful. Okay, yeah. So I hope you understood the Coulomb's law. I hope you had a good time. And I think this is like, sorry, I think we have at least started with the Coulomb's law, right? Yeah, and keep studying, keep on slogging hard, and yes, very soon I'll be doing more number of videos on this. Number one. Number two, I have an important announcement here. This is that I'm going to very soon start with the videos of CET and NEET and JEE and JEE Advanced, right? First of all, like this is a period of like we're all sitting at home, waiting, like deciding, like waiting for the government to announce the dates for the different competitive exams. Now, if you're already if you've already like passed out 12th and you're getting ready for all these competitive exams, these videos are really going to help, right? It's a rapid course. Like some sort of, I don't like calling it crash course. I don't know why we call that, but I use that word a lot, but I don't like the word crash course. But yeah, I'll be starting a quick course on a quick revision. It will be some sort of quick revision on all the topics that you'll be needing for several competitive exams, right? That will be separate. That will be like under different categories, and this category, of course, my NCERT category will still continue. I'll still continue to slog this hard. Okay, fine. All the best. Take care of yourself. Keep slogging. Take care. Bye.